Hello, and good morning to anybody who's watching now or later. So, I streamed a couple nights ago. I was working on some stuff and I got stuck. And I thought there was a bug with the programming language. There wasn't, I just had a misunderstanding of some things. So, now that's all cleared up. Uh, the prototype is working, which is great. So I'm just working on polishing it up, and I'm going to build all these like test cases and stuff to make sure everything works. Um, so vutil is a package that I've developed for Tcl that provides some like features for dealing with variables in Tcl that are not in the language. Things that I have wanted in the language and things that I have then added with existing features. So it's a pure Tcl package. There's no like binary that has to be compiled. So it works on any platform. So the commands that I hadn't had in it before was just default, lock, unlock, tie, and untie. So the default command just is a soft set of a variable. So if the variable exists, then it'll define it. If it or if it doesn't, sorry, if the variable already exists, it's not going to do anything, and it's just going to return the existing value. If the variable doesn't exist, then it'll create the variable and set a value. So it's useful for like if you have a file that you want to just be able to run on your own, but then you also want to like source it and then change a variable at the top level, you can have defaults in the file. So kind of like a default in like a procedure, but instead it's in a file. And then lock is more of like it's a top level thing where you can lock a variable, and this will prevent it from being overridden. So basically, it creates a read-only variable, essentially. And then you can unlock it. Excuse me. And just the way it works is it's using traces. So if you're not familiar with the traces in Tcl, here I'll pull up something for that. So these are all the Tcl commands. This is pretty much the entire language. So trace is a much more advanced feature of Tcl. It's kind of similar to like event programming, where there's an event that triggers some code. So with traces, the events that it triggers is when a command is renamed or deleted, or when a command is executed, or when a variable is accessed or written to or unset. And yeah, so you can do some really powerful things with this. I use it for my flytrap package in order to basically step through all the execution of code. So I create a simple command that just evaluates code, and then I use like a execution enter step trace, so that every single step in the execution of that code it'll enter into it. So yeah, traces, they're kind of difficult to work with, to be honest. It's not the easiest thing to do with Tcl. I think it even, not in here, but I think if I like look up like Tcl tutorial, yeah, trace. Yeah. It says It's a very powerful command that can be used in many interesting ways. It also risks being abused and could lead to very difficult to understand code if it's used improperly. For instance, variables seemingly changing magically, so use it with care. Which is why I'm using it not to just modify code, but I'm using it to create commands that allow you to know exactly what's happening. Like read-only variables, stuff like that. But yeah, variable traces are extremely powerful. The command execution traces are intended for expert users, perhaps those writing debuggers for Tcl in Tcl itself, and are therefore not covered in this tutorial. So, hey, I'm an expert user because I use this stuff all the time. Yeah, it's very difficult, but it gives you like full control over like everything that's happening, which is really cool. You can literally control and rewrite the language within the language using the trace command. So, so then I have the garbage collection stuff in here, and this is not new. This was from my most recent version that's released, version 0.2. You got tie and untie, and this creates like a garbage collection variable tie to an object. So that's really helpful. So that way you can create an object within like a procedure, and then you don't have to worry about destroying the object before the procedure is over. This is something that's it's something that's missing in Tcl right now. And so this just provides the very basic functionality of creating an object tie to a variable. But then the stuff that I'm doing now with the link command and then the combination of tie and link, which is the object command, or obj, or it's a class in Tcl object oriented, creates a combined variable and object like amalgamation, essentially, so that the object, there's a variable that is tied to the object, and then that variable contains the name of the object, and that object name is also a variable which is then tied to the object itself. So that way, if the variable that holds the object name goes out of scope, it all gets deleted. And then if you try to modify the object variable, then it actually modifies the object value. It's pretty cool. I've been trying to get it to work, and I finally got it to work, and I'm going to do a little demo here. So the other one I added is link and unlink, and these are a little bit different than the like lock and unlock and tie and untie, because it's dealing directly with objects. So you link an object, check to see if it's an object, and then let's see. Am I getting any desktop audio here? Oh, there we go. Hardly any. I want there to be some music in the background. Anyways, I get distracted. So, an object is a command in Tcl that then has like subcommands and its own namespace that stores variables. So it's an encapsulation of commands and also variables. And so I'm going to link the command name of the object with a variable of the same name. So typically the namespace for an object, especially if it's automatically created with Tcl object-oriented programming, the namespace is the name of the object. So then the variable of the namespace is not in the namespace of the object, so it's separate from it. But it's within the parent namespace of object-oriented. So for example, if I do puts x here, I already have this up here, the name of the object and the name of the object variable is this OO double colon object 23. So each time you create a new object, it increments the object counter. And so you have all these variables that are then linked to the corresponding object. So first of all, this is just some like housekeeping here. If the variable happens to exist, it'll just like unlock it, untie it, unlink it. And then it'll set up all these variable and command traces. So for the read variable trace, it sets up this one where it sets the object variable equal to the object command value. So basically, to have a object work with this, the unknown method has to be configured such that when there's no arguments inputted, it then returns the object's value. So that's an important distinction and what separates this. So if you try to link an object that doesn't have this set up, it'll throw you an error because it'll throw the unknown command. And then the right link then uses the equals method to define using the value stored in the object variable. So if you write to the object variable, then after you write to it, it'll trigger the right link trace, which will then use the assignment operator on the object. So then it'll keep the object value in line with the variable. So like at any time, like what's actually stored in the object variable is not actually what's in the object itself. But it's just because you have this read link on it that whenever you try to access it, it then defines it. So it's not like you keep on defining that variable and keep overwriting that variable. It only writes to that variable using the unknown method of the object when you want to access it. So it doesn't add any overhead, really, to actually just working with the object itself. It just provides another method for you to access the object value. And then lastly, unset. If you unset the variable that has the same name as the object, it'll remove the well, first of all, unsetting the variable will remove all variable traces. That's just something that by default happens. But then it'll also remove all of the command traces on the object. And then for the object link, that's for if the object is renamed or deleted, it calls the object link tracer. And this one, it'll first unset the variable, which will exist because if the variable is unset, then it removes the tracer. So that's not really a concern. Oh yeah, this also and command traces. And then lastly, if it's a deletion, which is when the new name would be blank, then it renames to new name. So this will relink the object. So if you happen to create an object and you actually specified a name like X or something, and if you had it where that command, that object just evaluating it without any method would give you the value, and then where the equal method would assign the value. Well, if you renamed X to Y, then it would get rid of all the traces on X, on the variable and the object, and then relink Y to itself. So that's really what goes on. And then this is used in the object class here, OBJ. So you have link and tie. So you tie some reference variable to the object, and then you link that object. And so I have my unknown method here, which is modified so that when there's no input arguments, it returns the value using the getValue method. And then I have an assignment operator, which calls the setValue command, which sets the value of the object. And that's about it for that. So I have an object here. So if I go object new y equals, I'll just do y. So this is going to be a blank object. So it's object 24, so the object counter incremented. If I do y, there's no I get value. Hold on. Okay, yeah, this is as expected. So basically, just trying to access it. So if I go puts y, that's object 24. So then y, it'll say, okay, it doesn't exist, because if I do info exists y, 0. So this is different than how normal variables behave. This is where the variable and the command are one and the same, which is pretty cool. This is a feature that's in a lot of other languages, but has been missing in Tcl, and so I'm hoping that this provides that functionality that's been missing. So, with an object variable, you have to specify using the $sign. So you have a variable that ties it. So you have like the garbage collection variable, which is, in this case, y. So if I go info exists y, that's the garbage collection variable. And that one can be local or global. If it's global, then it'll only delete the variable, or it'll only delete the object if it goes out of scope, or if you unset it directly. If it's a local variable, like in a procedure, then when the procedure's done, then it'll clean it up and it'll destroy the object. But then there's the garbage collection variable stores the object variable, which is also the object name, which is, as I stated before, is that object 24. I can go set y, I don't know, just do 10. So it works just like regular variables, except you have the $sign there, which might look a little bit funny if you're used to Tcl, because like usually that's when you do substitution. So if you want to get the value direct, if you want to get the value, you can either just do y on the command line, or you can do substitute y like that. So that will also access it. It's very quick. Like if I time this, set y 10, for example, do it 10,000 times, 2 microseconds. You know, it's instantaneous. Okay. Let's try something else. Let's say set a 5. If I time this one, now this is interesting actually. I was kind of baffled when I saw this. This is actually longer. It actually takes longer to do that. I honestly don't understand why it takes longer to just set a variable normally versus using the object variables. Like, it's faster. I'm still like confused as to why it's faster when you have to do substitution and then a variable trace. My only guess is that when this is compiled on the fly, that it knows that this is, it like knows the path it has to take, I guess, and like that's already like precompiled because it's in an object. So Tcl is an interpreted language, so it compiles on the fly. So if you're just evaluating code, just raw Tcl code, that's going to be a lot more computationally expensive because it has to compile it on the fly, versus if you create objects and procedures and stuff, then it can compile it once and then run that compiled code. So I think that's what's going on here. because the actual setting of the variable is happening in the right link here, which would be a compiled procedure, and then it's using the equals method, which is also compiled. So everything's compiled, but I don't know. It's like 3 times faster, more than it's like 4 times faster. I don't understand. Anyways, but you can do introspection on it. So if you want to access the variable, you can either do that substitute, or you can do put it in square brackets. So that also gets it. So if you want to evaluate the object variable value, like get the value, you put it in square brackets. And if you just want the variable, you just have the $sign. So it's like another level above Tcl variables. You have Tcl variables, and then you have Tcl object variables using the variable utility package. If I go and unset y here, now the if I try to access that object 24 here, there's no command. So that command is gone. And likewise, if I try to access it, info exists, it doesn't exist anymore. So this is great because that means garbage collection is working. So I see someone just joined in. Welcome. I'm just kind of going through a rundown on a demo of the latest update to my variable utility package for Tcl, which adds object variables to Tcl. So they are variables that store values, but are also objects that can have their own methods, and also has garbage collection. So it's a way to do object-oriented programming in Tcl with garbage collection. So if that's interesting to you, stick around, ask some questions. Oh, hey, what's up, Hamster? Good morning. So yeah, I don't know if you caught any of that, but I have a type system working in Tcl. Yeah. So here, I'll do new double x. X equals. Actually, this is gonna be. I think this will work. Oh no, it doesn't work yet. Hold on. I was gonna. Oh, that should work. Hold on. If it's greater than 0. Hold on. I'll just do the list one. I've tested that one out. So, I created a new list. It's just empty, so it doesn't exist. But I can do like append x lamster. So now that's the value. And then there we go. Lamster is cool. And so if I do length x is 3, I can also do x length is 3, x. So I have, and then the value or the variable x. So I go info exists x. That's the variable that stores the object name, which is also the command. So the object command is also a variable that is linked to the object command's value method and also its assignment method. So does that make sense? I can do like x info value, lamster is cool, length 3. It's in its early stages. I'm kind of bummed that this the double one should work. I don't know what's going on here. Next, tickle math func double, up level 1, expression. Arcs, that should work. Why is it not working? Okay, yeah. So in Tickle you have variables, and then the $sign does variable substitution. And then you have commands. So the first word of any line is the command. And so the way that object-oriented programming in Tickle works is that the first word is the object name, which is a global command that is typically in the namespace of OO, the object-oriented namespace. That's if you create it automatically. Otherwise, you can specify any name for it, but it's always a global command. So what my package does is it gives the ability to link a variable with the same name as the object command name to the assignment and value methods of that command, of that object command. So that way the object command and the object variable are like one and the same. So you can modify, like for example, for that list right here, if I do set x, and I'm going to try to create something that's not a list. So I'm just going to do an escaped bracket here, which that is not a valid Tickle list because brackets delineate lists. It will throw me an error. So now it is restricting the input because it is not a list. So you cannot set that value. You cannot set that variable equal to that value. So Tickle is inherently a typeless language. Everything is a string. And this still was within the rules of the language. It's just I'm adding types on top of it. So everything at its fundamental level is still just all strings. Like, yeah. I've been meaning to do this for a long time. I had a prototype of it like a couple of years ago, and the prototype was for vectors, which actually I could just do x0 is lamster, x1 is x2 is cool, and that is a whole lot easier than the current way, which you have to use the lindex command and then the list in this case I'm just going to do in brackets evaluate the object value. That's the current way you do it. So you create a list and then you use the lindex command, and it's very verbose. So this allows you to have very compact indexing within the language. If I did lset x01 Smith. So now your last name is Smith. And now I could do x00 is lamster, x01 Smith. I can also do lindex x01. I can do that as well. And actually I think if I time it, let's see, time x01 1,000 times. So it's like doesn't take any time at all really. And then if I try to do it this way, it's about the same. So versus, let's say if I had a different variable, I'm going to call this one z. Set z. I'll do the value of x here. So there's a list. I'll just make sure that Tcl is interpreted as a list, so now it's a list. If I time lindex z01, so it is slower to access it in this other way because it's having to go through more things. So indexing is still going to be slower, and maybe I can improve that in the future. But we're still talking about a microsecond here to access it. So it can handle like 1 million of these operations every second. So at a base level, it's still going to be faster to do a direct like lindex command, but for just doing scripting, this is way easier. And I'm going to be using this as a foundation for building, like, I already have my n-dimensional list like package out there with the TDA tada package. And so I'm going to build on top of it n-dimensional list objects that allow you to do n-dimensional list indexing and like slicing and everything and mapping and element-wise operations and stuff using this. So it'll give you like the power of something like NumPy, except with all of the like substitution, like flexibility of Tcl. So you have like all of like the very highly interpretive nature of Tcl, where like literally you can do substitution and evaluate code. But also have the type system where you can do infinite dimensional array manipulation. So that's what I'm working on. And I have the prototype for that. I'm building up the base level here. And this is the reason I like Tcl so much, is that it's just, I can just completely reinvent the language within the language without even having to like open up C at all. This is a highly interpretive language. So, and if you're interested, I know you just joined a little bit ago. This uses the trace command in Tcl, which allows you to add traces, which are like events on command renaming, command deletion, command execution, variable access, variable writing, variable unsetting. So it allows you to build in features to the language that don't exist. So that's how the debugging, like the flytrap package works, and how I can debug code. Yeah, I was using command execution traces for that. Here I'm not using execution traces. I'm just using command and variable traces. And then I'm kind of like marrying the two with the link command, which is up here. So I create variable traces on the object name, which is also, it's going to be a variable and a command. So I create read, write, and unset variable traces, and then I create a command trace that works for renaming and deletion. So the read link just sets the object variable to the value from the object itself. The write link uses the assignment operator of the object, and then assigns that equal to whatever you set the variable to. And then if you unset the link variable, then it doesn't destroy the object. I'm wondering if I should. No, it just unlinks it. So it's basically a way to unlink it. So, come to think of it though, I'm kind of thinking that maybe it should. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that if you go and say unset X, that should delete the object too, shouldn't it? Because like unset x will also delete it. That will there's garbage collection set up with the variable that's assigned to the that evaluates the object name. Like, should unset x be the same as x destroy? What if the object is in another structure? What do you mean? Like if it's like an object within an object, something like that? Because you can have objects within objects. Like a list of objects. I mean, you could. Let's say if I did like x0 equals new list z. So now x0 is that object. So then if I did set x0 to hello world. Now if I did, well, if I did x0 here, it would just be the object name. But then if I evaluated it, I get hello world. Does that make sense? Like the object name is always going to be a global command. It's within a namespace. It can be within a namespace, but it's going to be a fully qualified name. So it doesn't matter where you reference it. It's always going to refer to that object. But yeah, you can have objects within objects. It's just a reference, though. It's not actually the variable value is not actually stored. So it's all references. So it's not like you yeah. So if you have an object like a list that's referred to in multiple areas, it's just a reference. Like there's only one copy of the list. Can you assign x to y, unset x, and still use y? Like set y to x like this, and then unset x. No, you cannot. You'd have to retie it, basically. So you could do that if you did like new list x equals 1, 2, 3. You could then do tie link tie y x unset x and then y. That should have worked. Clearly something didn't work. I mean, I'm still working on a prototype here. That should have worked. Let's see here. Tie will tie a variable. It'll unlock and untie the reference variable, which is fine. I think you'd have to untie x first of all. Yeah. So you'd have to do untie x and then link tie y x unset x. There we go. So you can do it. It just requires a little bit of finagling. The whole idea is that well, another thing you could do, actually, here I'm going to unset y. You know what? I've made a decision. I am going to have this do object name destroy. Destroy the object. And then that would then trigger this one. I'm going to see if this, like, this might pose a problem. I'm just going to comment this out for now. So if I go and unset x, okay. Oh, wait, actually, the variable doesn't exist yet. Huh. Let's see, object new x set x5. If I do unset x, okay, it does work. But that's fascinating that it doesn't do that. Hold on. New object x. If I do unset x, it says can't unset no such variable. But then it's still called the unset link. Which I find fascinating. Because then if I do this, it says invalid command name. Restart the interpreter. I already did. I just oh. Just lowered my seat. So when I go to unset the variable, it says I can't unset it because there's no variable because it has not been initialized. So if I did like object new x info exists, x is 0. So like then if I assigned it a value, and edit info exists, it'd say yes, it exists. So like that works, but then if I unset x, well, and then it works too. The garbage collection variable x still exists though. So that variable exists, and if I unset x, and that still works. So that's good. But now I have a weird behavior if I try to unset it when it doesn't exist. Because if I try to do it now, unset x, it says no such variable. It's a normal thing to happen. So if I do object new x, oh. Okay. Versus before, I just had it where unsetting it would destroy the link. I think that provides a little more consistent behavior. So if I go set y x here, info exists y, info exists x, no. If I do x equals 10, that's good. If I use set y 5, and if I do unset y, so that still exists. So x still exists, but if I try to do set x 10, then it breaks the link. Which, that's kind of weird behavior. Because the substitution, like, the $y isn't special. It's just substituting and then replacing with the value. Like if I went and unset y here, X is still valid. I could go and then link X, and now I can go set X 10, and then I relinked it. I'm thinking it should destroy the object, though. Like, it just makes sense that if you unset an object variable, that it destroys the object. Like, there's unlink, but I can unlink an object, but unsetting it should destroy it. Like, that should be the default. Maybe I remove the tracer first and then call object name destroy. Or maybe I could set up like a one-time trace. Proc vutil init link object name args, and then I could remove the init link, trace add variable object name just like this. Trace for initializing the unset trace. I'll try that. So now I'll just have object name destroy, just like that. I still get okay, that actually, I think that actually might work. Although I do need to change the error message in here. Include quotes to make it consistent. So X is not initialized, but there's still the like it's a command. So if I go like info commands X, it exists. So it's an object, but it's an empty object. If I go set X 5, now info exists X. If I go trace info X or trace info variable X. So now I have the unset link, the write link, and the read link. So if I create a new object and trace info variable Y, I have the init link for write, and then I have the write link, and then I have the read link. So there's no, if I try to unset Y, you can't unset it. If I try to access the value, you can't read it. Just like if I had info exists Z, no. So if I try to do unset Z, it says can't unset Z, and if I try to access it, puts Z, it also says can't read. Look at that. And now if I try to then set Z to something, say Z5, and I go puts Z, it works. And if I do unset Z, it works. And if I do set Y 5, info exists Y, trace info variable Y, hello? Hmm. For some reason it destroyed all the variable traces. Well, that ain't right. I'm gonna have to get going in a little bit here, but I'm just gonna do some debugging here. Okay. Oh. Okay. For some reason, that destroyed all the traces. Maybe... So unsetting it, before it even exists, for some reason it destroys all the traces. That seems wrong. That's a weird edge case. So by default, does this just remove all the traces? Like, do I need to add like a trace on unset? Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to modify existing commands or add traces to existing commands. It's bad form. You can do it, but then that automatically adds overhead to existing code. And I don't want to have anything in my code that would slow down something else, or maybe add unexpected behavior to other people's code. Because it didn't trigger any of these. If I go set x5, it doesn't trigger any traces anymore. I can go link x, and now if I do set x5, it'll initialize and write it, and if I go unset x, it will destroy the object. But then if I go like I have the initialization link and the write link and the read link. So if I try to unset it, it just throws an error. But still unsets the variable. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. I think this works, because, like, if you unset x, And if even if the maybe I should have it where it returns okay. Can I make it so it like doesn't return an error? Return code okay. No, I can't do that. I think this is about as good as I can get. For now, at least. So it's just a little bit different behavior than normal Tcl variables. So if you try to unset, it'll still destroy the object even if it's an empty object. It'll still destroy the object. But now there's no command. So if I set x to a value, now that's stored in the value, and info exists. X is true. If I unset x, it'll say invalid command name. Unset x, that's the garbage collection variable, and that also goes away. Okay. I think that's consistent enough behavior. Oh, I need to test one thing though. Object new x, or object new x, x destroy. Okay, that's fine. Then if I do x equals 10, x destroy, we're good. Now what if I unlink it then? X equals 10. Unlink x, trace info variable x, nothing, and the command traces, nothing, x destroy, unset x. That all works. Cool. Okay. It's pretty solid. Need to figure out some stuff with the type stuff down here. The list indexing works so far. So that's good. And I think the string stuff works too, but I need to work on the double and int types. And there's other types too. Maybe I'll make the dictionary type as well. I just want to make very basic containers for it. I'm not I'm not in the business of taking existing Tcl data types and adding like a ton of methods to it. I just want to provide simpler access. So if you create a dictionary, you could have a method that just accesses like keys and values. So I could just have like a get and set method, or something like that. So anyways, I'm just going to commit these changes to this newest version here. I got a bunch of junk files here. It's just this main one. Bug fixes and rewrote link and unlink. Exactly. I just want to get the basics down and provide a like meta class for people to build types, and then people can add types with it. They can create their own like package that adds a new data type, or provides a container object for existing data types in Tcl. Because nobody has done this yet. So, not to my knowledge. This has been one of the biggest, like, kind of to-do list items for Tcl. It was to be adding garbage collection for objects. And so this handles that. So, bug fixes, rewrote link and unlink. There we go. Alright, I gotta get ready to go to work here, so but yeah, it's working for the most part. And this will like transform Tcl code into something that's much more readable and easier to deal with. So, because one of the other things I want to do is to add when a garbage collection be handling all the unsets automatically. Yeah, to some extent. So garbage collection, when you create an object, so this variable x is the garbage collection variable. And when that's unset, I'm using the my tie command here. So you tie a variable to a object. And that creates a write and an unset variable trace on the object. And what then that does is, I should have this be the list here. Just a side note, just to keep things consistent. It's gonna run over here a little bit, but I'll just do that. So what that does is that when there is a write or an unset action that happens to tie trace, or happens to a tied variable, it will then destroy the object, or try to. If the object doesn't exist anymore, then it won't destroy it. And then it'll also untie the variable. So if there's any modification done to that variable, whether it's unset, so it goes out of scope naturally with garbage collection, or whether it you manually unset it, or if you set it to some other value. So if you if you tied x to an object, and then later on you set x to something else, it would get rid of the object. And the link part then links the object name to a variable of the same name that allows you to set and unset the object value. And so the object class here does link and tie. So you have a reference variable that's your garbage collection variable that's handled, that ties the internal garbage collection of Tcl to cleaning up the object itself. And then it links the, and then the link additionally provides another layer of garbage collection for if you manually unset the object variable. Does that make sense? You have a normal variable that's just tied to the object variable, and the normal variable can be in local scope, but the object variable is always fully declared global scope. So the object variable can be accessed anywhere, and it doesn't matter if you're in a procedure or if you're in another namespace. It has a fully declared namespace. So you have to have those two levels. You have to have the reference variable that is tied to garbage collection, and then you have the other variable which is tied to writing and reading the object value. Anywho, it's a lot. And then I have a superclass here of type. So then you can create a new type. And then you can add types, remove types, get a name of types, check to see if a type exists, get the class name of a type. And then, when you create a new type, then it automatically creates a new class with the creates a new class that's a subclass of the object class, and yeah. So that's how it works. I've been having fun with this. Variable utility used to just be the default lock, and unlock. It was just those, and now it's expanded to be an entire type library. So, and yeah, the other fun thing is because the object variable also works with the default. So if I do object new x, info exists x, no. So if I do default x 100, x is 100 now. But if I did object new x equals 10 and default, then it wouldn't set it to 100 because it already exists. So it works with the default command. It doesn't work with lock, not entirely. Lock will, I haven't tested it, but lock's not going to change. Lock's not going to prevent you from modifying the object value. It's just going to lock the object variable, so you won't be able to modify your object value through normal Tcl commands. You'll only be able to access it through the object methods. So that is a feature that you can use. So you could lock an object variable to prevent people from accessing it in ways that you don't want them to access it in. So that's another side benefit. I haven't tested it yet, but I'm pretty sure that's the behavior I'm expecting. So yeah, now I just gotta finish writing all the test cases for this and wrap up the documentation, and hopefully I'll get this wrapped up by the end of the week, and then this will be the foundation for some other things I'm doing. So anywho, thanks for tuning in. I'm happy that this stream actually had some demonstrations that I could do. Last time I streamed on this, I was thank you. Last time I streamed on this, I got stuck on something. I thought I found a bug in the Tcl language, but it just turned out that I just didn't fully understand trace, the trace command and trace and variable traces and stuff. So I have a better understanding of it now, and as such, I cleaned up a lot of things in the actual variable utility package as well. So that's been good. Always learning, always adapting. Alrighty, I'm going to end stream. Have a good rest of your Wednesday.